They fired me for burying my mother. No warning, no phone call, just a cold email. And the woman who signed it, she once called me the backbone of this company. That's when I knew I wasn't going to cry. I was going to rebuild, better, smarter, and without them. The email hit my inbox at 6:42 a.m. The subject line, cold and corporate. Notice of termination, effective immediately. I stared at the screen in disbelief, blinking as if my eyes were playing tricks on me. I had only been gone for 4 days. 4 days to lay my mother to rest. 4 days of officially approved bereavement leave. I hadn't even unpacked my suitcase yet. My name is Natalie Walker, and until exactly 6 minutes ago, I was Director of Operations at Falcon Logistics, a logistics powerhouse based in Houston. I wasn't just running the highest performing division in the region, I was the division. I built it from the ground up, piece by piece, process by process. And this email was how it ended? I reread the line that made my jaw clench. We appreciate your contributions, but we require leaders who understand that critical periods demand full presence and commitment. It was signed by Monica Reynolds, my direct supervisor, the same woman who once toasted my success at the regional summit and told me, "You're the kind of woman who makes this company thrive." Now I was apparently the kind of woman disposable by email. I sat back in my chair. The sun was barely up, casting pale stripes of gold through my apartment window. On my desk sat the only thing I had managed to bring back from my mother's house, a small ceramic mug with her faded handwriting. Stay steady. Let the storm pass. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just took a screenshot of the email, saved the PDF, and closed the laptop. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I moved with mechanical focus, pulling my Falcon Logistics badge off my lanyard, placing it neatly in a box beside a photo of my team from last year's logistics summit. We just hit record breaking numbers on the Henderson contract. I could still hear Jason's voice from that night, to Natalie, the engine under the hood. Without her, none of us run. And now I was expected to clear out, quietly. By 8:15 a.m., I walked into the Houston office like it was any other morning. I nodded to the security guard, rode the elevator in silence, and entered my department. It didn't take long before eyes started turning toward me. I didn't need to say a word. The cardboard box in my hand told the story. Jason saw me first. His coffee froze mid-sip. "Wait, what's going on?" "I've been let go," I said simply. "For what?" he asked, stunned. "For attending my mother's funeral," I replied, gently placing a framed photo of our team into the box. The room fell still. Veronica, our client success manager, came rushing in from a call. Her voice dropped when she saw my desk. "Is this a joke?" she whispered. I shook my head. They said I lacked presence during critical periods. Ethan, the warehouse flow analyst who never spoke unless absolutely necessary, muttered from behind his monitor. "That's disgusting." By 9:00 a.m., all 7 of my direct reports had gathered around my desk in a tight semicircle. No one said much, but their faces said everything. Loyalty, sadness, rage. I taped the last edge of the box and stood. Dan Weaver, the VP of Operations and Monica's right hand, emerged from the hallway like a shadow in a suit. His voice cut through the silence. "Team, I need you all back at your desks. We have quarterlies due next week. Now." No one moved. Veronica was the first to speak. "You're firing the woman who held this entire floor together, and you expect us to act like nothing happened?" Dan's face twitched. "This isn't personal." I turned to him. "It never is it?" "Until it happens to you." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Let's not make this emotional, Natalie." I stared at him for a long second. "Don't worry, Dan. I'll leave quietly. But don't mistake silence for weakness." I lifted the box, turned to my team, and gave them a final nod. "You were the best team I've ever led. Don't forget what you're capable of." Then I walked out of the place I had once poured 5 years of my life into, not with tears, but with quiet resolve. The parking lot was quiet when I stepped outside, Houston's late morning heat wrapping around me like a heavy coat. I placed the box in my trunk, sat in the driver's seat, and just paused. No job. No security. No goodbye from management. Just a memory of my mother's voice, soft but certain. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. We're all with you. Just say the word. Another buzz. This time, Jason. Dan's trying to clean up the mess, but the files you built, no one knows how to navigate them. It's chaos. I allowed myself the smallest smile. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID read, Graham Porter, Vertex Freight. I blinked. Graham was the chief strategy officer at Vertex Freight, Falcon Logix's biggest regional competitor. We'd met twice at industry panels, exchanged a few emails over the years. I hadn't spoken to him in over 6 months. I answered. Natalie, I just heard what happened. Is it true? Depends what you've heard. That Falcon Logix let their top-performing director go for attending her mother's funeral. If that's even half true, it's insane. I didn't respond. Graham continued. Listen, Vertex is ramping up Pacific operations. We've got a division in Austin that needs a strong leader, someone who can build from the ground up and command loyalty. I've already cleared it with our CEO. If you're interested, the role's yours. I sat up straighter. Division head, title, team, autonomy, and a 35% raise from what you made at Falcon, plus a relocation bonus and equity options. I stared at the freeway stretching out in front of me. It was more than I expected. Way more. Graham, I have a non-compete. He didn't miss a beat. Send it to our legal team. We'll cover it and fight it if Falcon Logix wants to press. I didn't speak right away. The offer was incredible, but I wasn't done processing what had just happened. Was it revenge I wanted? No, I wanted something better. I wanted to build something they could never take from me. Can I have a day to think? I asked. You've got 48 hours, Graham said. After that, I'm handing it to someone else. But I'd rather it be you, Natalie. You've got a reputation, and now you've got leverage. He hung up. I sat in silence for another long minute, then reached for my mother's mug in the cue folder. Stay steady. Let the storm pass. Except this time, I wasn't just going to wait for the storm to pass. I was going to walk straight into it and bring my team with me. That night, I met Veronica and Jason at an old dive bar tucked off Westheimer. The place hadn't changed in years. Scratched wood tables, jukebox humming in the background, and just enough neon to remind you you're still in Houston. They slid into the booth across from me, their faces tight with frustration. I still can't believe they did this, Veronica said, her voice low but trembling. You gave everything to that company. Jason shook his head. They didn't just fire a manager. They lost their anchor. And now the whole ship's drifting. I let them vent, listening as they shared stories I had already guessed. Missed client emails, disorganized logistics files, Dan's panicked attempts to reassign my projects without a clue how they worked. But the most important detail, the team was breaking, and they were looking for direction. What are you thinking? Jason finally asked. I looked at both of them, calm but focused. I've been offered a position at Vertex, division director. It's real. Strategic control, better pay, full autonomy. Veronica's eyes widened. You're going? Seriously? Jason leaned in. What about your non-compete? Graham Porter says it's unenforceable. Vertex's legal team will back me if Falcon tries anything. They exchanged a look, then turned back to me. If you're going, Veronica said slowly. I want in. Jason nodded. Me too. No hesitation. My throat tightened, not out of sentiment, but because I realized something very real. I hadn't just built a team. I'd built loyalty. I'm going to make one thing clear, I said. I'm not poaching anyone. But if any of you apply to Vertex on your own terms, I'll make sure your applications don't get buried. Jason grinned. Already done. Submitted mine yesterday. Veronica raised her glass. Me too. Sent it with a recommendation letter from a client. I figured it wouldn't hurt. I laughed softly. So you're already ahead of me. They smiled, but I could still see the exhaustion in their expressions, the emotional whiplash from loyalty betrayed, and the cautious hope for something better. Dan's in way over his head, Veronica said, more serious now. He's drowning. Paula from Regional's been calling nonstop. They're afraid you'll take the whole department. I looked at her, then at Jason. I don't want to take anyone, but I'm done being used, and I'm not letting good people drown with a bad leader. Jason raised his glass. To something better. I clinked mine gently against his. To something we build for ourselves. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. At 8:12 a.m., I dialed Graham Porter from my apartment, a small, sunlit unit not far from downtown Houston that felt more like a pit stop than a home. "I'm in," I told him, "but on one condition." "You name it," Graham replied without hesitation. "I want to build my own team." There was a pause, not hesitation, just calculation. "I assume you mean your people from Falcon Logix." "The first mean my people. If any of them apply, I want them treated with respect. Fair consideration. Nothing more, nothing less." Graham chuckled. "Fair, but if they're anything like you, they won't stay applicants for long." By noon, I had the offer in hand. Division Director, Vertex Freight, Pacific Operations, reporting directly to Graham with a dotted line to the CEO, 40% higher base salary, full relocation package, and a $20,000 signing bonus wired before I even moved a single file. I signed before sunset. That same day, Jason, Veronica, and Gabriella texted me separately. "Interview with Vertex this week. HR just called to schedule a time. It feels like I can finally breathe again." I didn't say much. Just enough to let them know I was rooting for them without overstepping boundaries. Meanwhile, things at Falcon Logix were unraveling, and fast. Louise texted first. "Dan's called a 7:30 a.m. emergency meeting." He looked like he hadn't slept. "The Wilson account is threatening to pull out." Ethan, usually stoic, followed. "System's a mess. We can't find your logistics templates. No one knows how to run Q3 projections." Veronica sent a final update that night. "Paula from Regional is furious. She's doing damage control, but Dan keeps deflecting. Rumor is the board's watching." I leaned back in my new chair, a real one, with lumbar support, sunlight pouring into my Vertex office. Not one of those windowless afterthought cubicles I used to fight for. The irony wasn't lost on me. I hadn't leaked the chaos, hadn't posted a single thing on LinkedIn, hadn't emailed a single client. But word travels when you build quietly, deliver consistently, and disappear suddenly. My team hadn't left because I asked. They left because they realized they didn't have to stay. By the end of the second week, Veronica was the first to walk through the glass doors of Vertex Freight HQ with her onboarding badge in hand. She looked different, not just polished, but unburdened. "I forgot what it felt like to walk into a place where no one's waiting to undermine you," she said as I gave her a tour. 2 days later, Jason followed. Then Gabriella. Then Ethan, Diane, and finally Louise and Kayla. 7 in total. All from my old team. All now seated on the 18th floor of the Vertex building, just across from my office. We didn't call it a takeover, though some at Falcon Logix had started whispering just that. We called it what it was, a new start, built on respect, not survival. The Vertex leadership welcomed them with open arms. Graham Porter, true to his word, even sat in on a few of the interviews. "They're sharp," he told me afterward. "Loyal to you, more than to a company. That kind of unity doesn't happen by accident." I didn't say much in return, just nodded and let the work speak for itself. By mid-month, we'd already secured 2 new accounts, one of them a former Falcon Logix client who followed us quietly, citing personnel trust in the transition documentation. But the real news came from the other side of town. Paula, the regional manager still hanging on at Falcon, called me on a Thursday morning. Her voice was stiff but measured. "We've received 7 formal resignations," she said flatly. "All from your former team. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" I kept my tone even. "I don't work at Falcon Logix anymore, Paula. Vertex does, though, and you work there." There was a pause. "We underestimated your influence," she said eventually. "Frankly, I did too. That was a mistake." Another pause. "Dan's not handling it well." "I wouldn't expect him to," I replied. By Friday, I had a LinkedIn notification. Dan Weaver's profile was updated. Former regional supervisor at Falcon Logix. No announcement, no farewell post, just silence. Word around the industry was that he'd been reassigned pending internal investigation. Back at Vertex, my team was settling in fast. Jason was already proposing revisions to the Pacific Freight tracking model. Veronica was overhauling our onboarding playbook for new client liaisons. At lunch, I caught them laughing in the break room. No whispers, no tension, just energy, fresh, full, and unafraid. I hadn't just landed a promotion, I'd helped create a space that felt right. That night, Graham stopped by my office. Ever considered something bigger than division lead? He asked casually. I raised an eyebrow. Like what? Executive Vice President, Northwest and Central Ops. It's not open yet. But when it is, you'll be the first person I call. I gave a quiet smile. Let's build something that earns that call. He nodded, then turned to leave. Oh, and Natalie? Yeah? You've changed the culture here faster than we expected. People are watching. In a good way. As the door closed behind him, I looked out the window. The Houston skyline glittered in the dark, and I realized something. I hadn't sought revenge. I'd just raised the standard and let everything else collapse under its own weight. 6 months had passed. At Vertex Freight, my team was thriving, not just functioning, but innovating. We'd reduced fulfillment delays by 19% increased customer retention and secured 3 major accounts that had once been cornerstones of Falcon Logix's portfolio. The 7th? The Wilson account, the one Dan Weaver had dismissed me over, signed with us 2 weeks ago. They didn't even haggle on terms. It's not just Natalie we followed, the procurement lead said over Zoom. It's the leadership philosophy she carried with her. Those words echoed in my mind for days. Leadership wasn't the loudest person in the room. It was the one who made space for others to succeed. That Friday, the entire team surprised me with cake. Again. 6 months since we all jumped ship. Jason laughed. Feels like 6 years. In a good way, Veronica added. I looked around at them, relaxed, confident, and most of all, whole. My greatest revenge hadn't been reclaiming my career. It was proving that a team built on trust can outrun any broken system. But there was one more message waiting for me. That evening, as I drove home, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. Natalie speaking. The voice on the other end was softer than I expected. Hi, it's Paula McCormack, she sounded. Different. I left Falcon Logix, she said before I could ask. I'm with a consultancy now. Culture redesign. Believe it or not, I smiled faintly. People change. Even companies. Not all of them. Falcon's being acquired. Meridian Freight picked up the pieces. Rebranding the whole thing. Dan's. Well, he's no longer in logistics. Word is he's moved back east. No one will hire him. I said nothing, but that's not why I called. I wanted to ask, was it worth it? I paused, watching the Houston skyline flicker against the night. Walking away? No, she said, walking forward. And taking everyone with you. I thought of the cactus plant on my desk, the one Barbara from HR at Falcon had mailed me with a note. You kept this alive. Thought you'd want it back. Yeah, I said. It was worth it. After I hung up, I pulled over by the riverbank, just outside the city. My father used to take me there when I was little. He always said, let the river rush. Be the rock. And somehow, standing at the water's edge, I finally understood him. Being steady didn't mean being still. It meant knowing your worth, even when the world tried to move past you. 1 year later, Vertex promoted me to Executive Vice President of Freight Operations across the Western region. My entire team got promoted too, not because they followed me, but because they grew beside me. And as for Falcon Logix, it exists now only in paperwork and memory. But every time I walk into a room filled with leaders who listen, who uplift, who build, I know the truth. My story didn't end when I was fired. It started when I stayed silent and let the results speak louder.